Hello and welcome back to another BobBlast. Hi, I'm Bob Burridge, and this one is all about painting the illusion of three-dimensional on a 2D surface, a flat surface, in an abstract. My previous BobBlast, I showed you how to do it with recognizable things like coffee cups and things like that. This is an abstract. But how do you do it in an abstract? Well, first of all, remember we talked about how warm colors come forward? Oranges and reds and yellows and greens and blues recede. The cool colors recede. Here are some examples of some of these loose examples of demos of doing receding and coming forward. For instance, my gosh, there's dark and purples and blues, but see how the reds pop forward. A pretty simple example of that. Look at this blue background. A lot of stuff going on in here, but your eye goes to one spot, the focal point. Even in an abstract, for me, I need to have a focal point, a place to go, something that grabs my attention. And it has to do that in the first 1 or 2 seconds. And it's an obvious thing that says screaming, look at me, look at me. For instance here, even though this is pretty small, the focal point, you go to it because it's the part that's the most different and has the most contrast. Another important part too. And of course the blues and the greens recede. That little red spot, look how small it is. And it comes right forward to you. Just a pretty simple demonstration of the technique that I like to use. Here is the other technique, which is out of focus. Put things that are not the focal point out of focus. Duh, right? So everything is out of focus, but boy, do you come to this little spot right here. It's pretty obvious still. I wanted to make it obvious. So you have a lot of contrast, number one. You have hard edge lines, soft edge lines. They recede, they disappear. You don't see them right off the bat. You see this right off the first second, bam. And again, the warm color comes forward first. I mean, it's a pretty obvious demo, but it's fun to do, to practice those elements of out of focus, will recede, doesn't get attention. The red's always gonna come forward. It is the focal point, the whole point of this whole. Now, it doesn't always have to be blues. Here's one that's green. I know so many people say, oh, I don't like greens. I decided to love greens and lots of different kinds of greens, neutral greens and that kind of thing. Make my own greens. But look how all that recedes, but it's pretty obvious again. The focal point, the most contrast, and the focal point is yellow-ish, kind of, and it's an abstract, and it still tells a story. Not completely abstract, it tells a story. You know, one of the things I really liked about Matisse, one of the many things I like about Matisse, he said, for instance, to make red more noticeable, make it smaller. So I took that philosophy, did this little abstract, structural abstract, all the different blues. There are some reds in here, but there's still gonna be one spot that the eye goes to, the focal spot. I love doing these kinds of exercises just for practice. Let me show you how I get started doing a three-dimensional illusion in an abstract here in my studio. Let's get started. Now my materials will be acrylic paint. I love acrylic. These happen to be Holbein acrylics because they're thick and they water down really well, and they're still really a strong color. So it's full body, as they say, and a lot of color. So I use the tubs or the jars. I have it already laid out, mostly red, yellow, blue, a lot of white, and some black. Big brushes, not these tiny little brushes. What the heck are you gonna do with that? We're here to paint, so we're gonna be using big brushes, all right? This is my watercolor paper, 300-pound watercolor paper. I like it because I can beat it up, literally beat it up, and it stays nice and flat. So, I do have a title on it, Rise to the Top. So I have to have a title at the beginning so I know where I'm going. So I'm not an intuitive painter that just kind of throws paint around and hope something shows up. I want to have an end result. All right, so I give it a title so I know when to stop. Pretty simple. All right, on one side, I have the gesso. I put a white acrylic gesso on the top surface of this beautiful watercolor paper. The reason I do that is because I seal it. It's sealed now. And now my paints will go on top of, my acrylic paints will go on top of the acrylic gesso. So it's a nice bonding there. Otherwise, if I put paint right on top of the watercolor paper, it soaks right in. That's what watercolor paper does. It would soak right in, and I wouldn't have any playtime. So by me putting acrylic on top of a dried acrylic surface, now I have more playtime. So, as I said, I have the title here. I have some tape here. I like to paint on the entire surface of the paper. I don't like to have tape around the surface to hold it down. So I just take tape like this. It's just a box tape. Keeps it steady. Right, there you go. Push it down. Now it's not going to go anywhere. That way I can paint with both hands, towels, brushes, and I have no tape around here to distract me or take my attention away from all of this. So the first thing I'm going to do is put down, the first thing will be the tone. Always put down a tone. In this case, I'm wetting my brush, and we're going to put down a tone. This is rise to the top. So the concept here, for me, is maybe I'm a diver. Yeah, there we go. Lots of water. I mean, that's what we use, lots of water. Don't scrimp here on the water. And just have fun with this. See how nice it is for me to be able to play. It doesn't soak right in. I have all this playtime. I can do all kinds of things in here, scraping and scratching. Anyway, lots of water. Have fun at this stage. Don't say I'll wait to the very end to have fun. I'm going to change the blue. That was, let's see what it looks, darker blue. This is ultramarine blue, wet into wet. And I want to have a gradualness is what I'm going for. Gradually in the bottom of the ocean type of concept. It's called rise up. So I'm going to be in water. And I want it to be really dark down in here. Talk about contrast. I'm even adding a little bit of black down in here. Wet into wet. I'm doing my blending right here on the paper. Look now, by adding the dark in here, look how more intense that blue even looks. I like to work flat on a table, craft paper, brown paper, so I can clean my brush off like that. There we go. Because it's so rich right now. That's so beautiful. I'm using lots of color. See how beautiful that color is? Oh, the paint just works so beautifully for me. I'm going to add some white up in here. Just really brighten it up even more so. This is a rise, so it's going to be deeper color in the sea, so to speak. There we go. And now, it's good enough for me. You don't want to tickle it to death. Brush marks are good. It's an abstract. So I'm not doing anything but refinement type of an abstract. So it's my kind of abstract, which is a loose, hard edges, soft edges. Let's play with colors. I'll let that dry and let's get going. Here we go. Color. So I've lightened it up a little bit down here. I love the drama of it, but just to give you more of a beginning of how I start is, let's make it even more dramatic, just like where we were before. Here we go. Dry, such a beautiful color. There, I really wanted to bring in that dark in here. See how much more dramatic it is. And I'm thinking about scuba diving. I loved that when I was younger, scuba diving. And that's where I got the idea of bubbles going to the top. So it's dark in the bottom, floating to the top. Let's get the focal point in here right off the bat. Remember, that's the color combination I'm going to be doing. Next one is, what's the theme? What's the composition? Really, what's the composition? Well, for floating with bubbles, I gotta have a composition. I just don't want them all over this particular composition. I want to do one in the golden section. So that would be 1/3 down, 1/3 down. This is a golden ratio, right? And 1/3 over. So somewhere in here. I'll start off the bat. There's my focal point. Now everything else I do will support the focal point. That's the whole idea. All right, so now I'm gonna get painting here. Circles. Big ones in the bottom. Ah, big ones. I'm just getting the graphic design down first. That's really what I'm doing. And I'll have some up in here too, maybe up in here. This is a short video, so I can't get into doing everything on this. But I think you're going to get the idea. So hard edges are going to be coming closer to you. That's what we're stressing here. And here's a good hard edge. As I get further away, I'm going to use a wet finger right now just to show you about how you can soften this. Wet finger still soft. There we go. It takes it out of focus. Let's take this one out of focus too. And see how this becomes more in focus now? It's there. You see it, but it's not the first thing you see. Here's a big one, really in your face, but it's in focus, so you tend to see that one first too. But this little one way out here, way out here. Boy, you see that right off the bat. Look how small it is too. And now let's get into some other pieces. I can certainly paint with fingers or with my brush. Let's get some colors up in here. I'm putting some oranges up in here. None of this makes sense. But as an abstract, as long as you're communicating, you're doing good. I always like to say, it doesn't matter how you paint it. It doesn't matter what your technique is. As long as you can communicate. So don't worry about your painting style. Nobody else does. It's all about as long as you communicate. And I'm trying to make it confusing on purpose here. To really point out the hard edges and soft edges. Idea. Let's go even brighter. Do this a little quicker. Get more stuff going on in here. More bubbles. Make them round. Notice the brush I'm using a 1-inch straight edge. Because you have this width and then you have this width. Doesn't always mean you need to have tiny brushes. I don't own tiny brushes. They get you into trouble. There we go. And again, just to keep this light and keep the focal point still bluish. Give it some painterly qualities to it, so it's not a solid color. I do want to show the bottom of this bubble a little bit, bottom of it a little bit. Yeah, that's what I want to do. Bring in some reflection on the top of a bubble. Not really painting bubbles, but at least give the illusion of them. A little bit of an illusion. Oh, sorry, I bumped the camera. Sorry about that, folks. There we go. And we have some bubbles way up in here. It takes me right out. So you'll see here the parts that's in focus, and I'm going to make them out of focus now. Basically with a wet finger. Because it's still wet into wet. And it could be maybe a more gentler job than this one. If I took my time more, huh? And start really painting bubbles so they look like they're floating. Remember the title, always go back to the title. When you get lost, and I do, go back to the title. You see, easy to get lost because you're creating. That's all good. It's all good stuff. I'll give it a couple more. Let's go out here. It really has the concept of rising to the top. So the out of focus have soft edges. Really make them. And the values are really close to each other. That's the other thing you can do. Make sure that the values are really close. So they're not as hard edge. See, the values here are close, but it's a hard edge. You can have values that are close and soft edges, they're further away. So I think we made our point here of doing three-dimensional imagery. This is just the first step. I mean, I would work on maybe another 20 or 30 minutes on this one just to keep on going and make it more refined and to communicate the concept of the title. And remember what the title is. It was Rise to the Top. And it's important to have a title at the beginning. At the beginning. That way you'll know when it's over. People say, how do you know when the painting's done? Well, that matches the title. Pretty simple for me. I don't have somebody to talk to in my studio say, hey, is this done? Is it the right thing to do? Be a painter. Believe in yourself and believe in your strokes. You're good enough to do your next best painting. Don't wait to midnight to start dreaming. So get your paintings going and create that illusion. It's great fun. Use any combinations you want. The heck with everybody else and all the rules. It's your time to play in the studio. I support you. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you on the next BobBlast.